some quite disruptive winds to western areas of the UK. So we do have yellow weather warnings in force for Tuesday night into Wednesday for that possible disruption. Otherwise, it's looked to stay showery as we move into the second half of the week as well.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know, Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back. I'm Bethany Elsey with the latest headlines from the GB newsroom. A funeral service has been held for two British-Israeli sisters who were killed in the occupied West Bank. Rina and Maya D, aged 15 and 20, were shot dead in their car by a suspected Palestinian gunman near an Israeli settlement on Friday. Their mother is still in hospital and is believed to be in a coma. Their father, Rabbi Leo, led the service. He called them an inspiration and said he would love them forever. The attack comes amid a rise in conflict across the region as Easter, Ramadan and Passover coincide. Hertfordshire Police says further allegations have been made against the former Metropolitan Police officer David Carrick since his conviction earlier this year. The Guardian newspaper reports more than 10 people have contacted the force with accusations including sexual assault. The CPS is now investigating. The 48-year-old was jailed for life with a minimum term of 32 years after carrying out what the court heard was a catalogue of violent and brutal sex attacks between 2003 and 2020. The Labour leader says he stands by every word of an advert that accuses Rishi Sunak of not wanting child sex abusers to go to jail. Writing in the Daily Mail, Sir Keir Starmer said he makes zero apologies for the ad, which was posted on Twitter. He added he refused to avoid the issue, criticising what he described as a path of decline for the NHS and the criminal justice system. That's despite criticism from MPs, including from within his own party. Former Home Secretary Lord David Blunkett called the advert gutter politics. NHS leaders are warning a 4-day strike by junior doctors in England will cause unparalleled levels of disruption for patients. The National Medical Director, Professor Stephen Powers, says he's very concerned with hospitals facing 100 hours without up to half of their medical workforce. Junior doctors will walk out from Tuesday in an ongoing dispute over pay. The NHS Confederation says 250,000 appointments could be postponed. At least 4 people have been killed in an avalanche in a popular skiing area of the French Alps. It's believed the victims were hikers climbing in the Amont-Set glacier near Mont Blanc. Several others have been injured, and a search and rescue operation is still underway. The King, Queen Consort and other senior royals have attended an Easter church service at Windsor Castle. It was held at St George's Chapel and was the first of King Charles's reign. The occasion falls on the 2nd anniversary of Prince Philip's death. Both he and the late Queen have been laid to rest in the grounds of the chapel. On TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn, this is GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. Happy Easter. I'm Nick Dixon and I'm joined by a very diverse panel tonight when we get the shot right. Firstly, biological woman Cressida Wetton, and the least diverse-looking diverse person ever. It's Latino Lothario Francis Foster. And Francis, you are Latino. We've checked your DNA. That is correct, isn't it?
It is absolutely correct. 23andMe are right, mate.
Yeah, and Cressida, I promise you tonight, I'm going to go the whole show without mentioning that you live on a boat. Is that OK? I'm just starting now, I'm not going to mention it.
I don't believe you.
OK, fair enough. Well, let's have a look at Monday's papers. So, the Daily Mail has Tory anger as Starmer stands by every word of Rishi ads. And we can imagine that. Oh, there it is. There you see. We know what we're doing. The Times, Labour will blame PM for crashing economy. We'll talk about that in a sec. The Telegraph, GPs scrap services to cope with strikes. Massive story there. The Guardian, UK is not close to being a racially just society, finds 2-year study. I was trying not to laugh because it's just so Guardian. Daily Express, millions demand to keep our banks open. Sounds like a good idea. And finally, the Daily Star, Boffs warn ET is a prawn. And we'll be getting into that very serious story in a moment. So let's kick off with the front of the Daily Mail, Francis.
Indeed. So the Daily Mail have gone with the headline, Tory anger, as Starmer stands by every word of Rishi ads. And of course, this is in reference to some tweets that the Labour Party have done, which basically says or insinuates that Rishi Sunak is pro-paedophile.
Really?
He's kind of, yeah.
Oh, you mean the other one when they said he doesn't care about the sexual abuse?
Yeah.
We covered that the other night, and I said it was a bit hypocritical given Labour had been very soft on the grooming gangs and so on and various other things. But isn't this one about the crash in the economy? It's the same series of adverts.
It's the same series of adverts, but what he's saying is he stands by every word in all of the adverts.
Right.
So, look, I'm actually for this because I'm all for banter politics. Labour are getting on the banter bandwagon. They're throwing a few pedo gags out there. Good on them.
Yeah, not sure how many of those words we can say, but apologies if anyone was offended by Francis in general. I think it's a good blanket apology for Francis. But it's ridiculous, isn't it, Cress? I mean, is this a cynical attempt to get the Red Wall on board? They imagine that the Red Wall are just sort of northern thugs like me and southern thugs like Francis. But
I think that's all it takes, just a bit of lads.
Lads bants.
And they'll win. I don't know. I mean, isn't this what politicians always do, throw mud at each other? You said not. You think it's a low blow?
Well, I just think it's... Look, I'm actually being facetious. It's actually crass. Yeah, it's actually a crass tactic by Labour, and quite frankly, they don't need to do it. I think they're 20 points ahead in the last poll that I checked. They are streets ahead of the Tories, who've done a terrible job over the last couple of years. They don't need to indulge in this. However, it is quite funny.
You think they should just sort of pack up like the high street banks and just sort of disappear and just wait out for the election, just hide out somewhere?
You think
it says here like that Sunak thinks it's acceptable for council tax to rise above 2,000, blah, blah. What they're doing is hitting Sunak on the economy and his taxes and all that. But do we really believe that Labour's going to be any better on the economy? Aren't they just all about high tax?
Quiet, aren't they, at the moment? I don't think they've got any specific, any great plans. And also, this is following all the COVID stuff. I mean, they wanted it harder and more and longer, and wouldn't it have been worse under Labour, but paying everybody's wages for however long it was, 18 months? I mean, that's why we're in the dire straits that we're in.
So none of this is convincing you. I don't want to put you on the spot, Cresta, but who are you voting for?
I'm undecided. There's everything to play for.
But this is swaying you, isn't it, this campaign?
What, the Rishi ads?
Yeah. It's not going to do anything to anyone. I don't know why they do it, but anyway, maybe we'll move on. It's kind of boring me now. Let's do the Telegraph and this massive story about GP services, Cressida.
Dozens of doctors. This is surgeons face Me Too moment over sexism. So apparently there's a lot of sexism in surgery, which I wouldn't have... You sort of imagine they're a classier bunch, don't you?
Yeah.
Dozens of doctors voiced support for female surgeons after they labelled NHS operating theatres boys' clubs. So I think you two would have made good doctors, wouldn't you?
Well, not judging by our grades or the subjects that we picked. I'm still quite offended, actually, that Nick didn't ask me what party that I'm going to vote for.
Yeah, who are you going to vote for?
Women's equality, mate. Love birds. Anyway.
I love that you made sure you got that in. Like, I want to get this in and make sure, because I don't like Twitter anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's an...
I'm getting confused. So that was the surgeons, the Me Too one. That's on the front of the Times. So are we now doing the Telegraph GPs one? Let's do the Telegraph GPs one.
And this is actually a very interesting story because GP to junior doctors, it looks like they're going to go ahead with their strike because of the actually very, very low wages that they're paid junior doctors and the ridiculous amount of hours they're meant to do and also their responsibilities. They really should get paid more. But anyway, so GP are going to have to scrap their services as a result of this because they need to cover for the junior doctors, because without the junior doctors, hospitals simply won't be able to operate. And obviously that's going to have a huge knockback because it's already impossible to get an appointment at the GP, and now this is just going to make it even worse.
I was going to say, will anyone notice that there's a strike? That's what I was wondering. I mean, I'm going to have to get an appointment in 2 weeks, a phone appointment, and I'll have to queue up in a phone queue from 8 a.m. That's what it already is. Yeah. Will it now be 6 a.m.? I mean, how much worse can it get? Another couple of things on this. They want a 35% pay rise, don't they? Which is absolutely mad. And because I heard a stat today that if the NHS gave a 1% pay rise across the whole NHS, that would cost £1 billion. Yeah. So for this 35% pay rise, where is that going to come from?
Well, it's not...
Cressida, where's it going to come from?
I don't know. I completely agree. Where is it going to come from? I've long thought that we overuse the GPs anyway, don't you think? I think 20 quid on a GP appointment, suddenly it would plummet. You know, like plastic bags in Tesco. If you put 10p on, nobody wants them.
Yeah.
That's my solution.
Well, I'm a Bupa man myself, and I'm not. This is not an advert, but I will say Bupa are amazing because you call them up, you can get an appointment on the day, you can get a phone appointment on Monday, diagnose on Tuesday. It's like a Craig David song for neurotics. It's absolutely amazing. Anyone who's got crippling hypochondria like me, Bupa is the only way to go. Have you ever gone private, Francis?
Yeah, I am with Vitality, mate.
Oh, who are they? I don't know them. This is the most GB thing. Like, GB is a right-wing channel. Me and Francis discussing the best private healthcare provider.
Some of us are freelance. I'm surprised that you don't just Google everything on the internet, Nick.
I do, and it's become such a bad habit. I'm having to stop doing that because I've got a serious problem with health anxiety, but probably shouldn't address that to the nation when we're trying to talk about the papers. All right, so that's the GPs. Let's have a look at the Express, Francis.
And this is actually a subject that is quite close, I think, to everybody's heart. It's millions demand keep our banks open. It's because lots of banks, with obviously the rise of digital, and obviously this ties into the pandemic as well, everybody's on online banking, nobody was using their branches, and so banks are closing them at a rapid rate in order to save money, in order to push people online. But obviously, people The vast majority of people, particularly older people, would much rather go into a bank, talk face-to-face with someone and get them to make the mistakes instead of the computer.
Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? People think it's like boomers or something, but actually 1 in 5 18 to 24-year-olds want to speak face-to-face, not online. And there's something a bit weird. My bank's shut down, so now I have to just like walk much further. I just never go.
Yeah.
There's something a bit disturbing about banks just shutting their shops and disappearing. They're the people that have got your money. You kind of want to see them, don't you? You know, if I lend you like 500 quid or something, I kind of want to know where you are. I don't like, where's just gone? He's left town. You know. What do you think, Preston?
I have not been inside a branch for years. I know this. It doesn't feel right. You know, it's more self-service, less people, but I can't get excited about it. I can't remember the last time I went in a branch.
No, one advantage of living on a boat, I suppose.
Oh, God.
No, just this once.
You're allowed to use money, Nick.
Presumably, though, right, if your bank shuts down, you can just float down the river and go to a different bank.
Yeah, that's how it works. We just float everywhere at walking pace.
Sorry, Francis, I interrupted you to just mock Cressida. What were you going to say?
I can't actually remember now.
OK.
But what I was saying is that this is a disaster, particularly for people who aren't as computer literate, people who are older, and also people who just need a little bit of human reassurance.
Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with that. Why? Yeah, let's bring back banks. I mean, strange campaign, but there we go. Let's do the star. Now, this is a very important story, Cressida, about science or something.
It's about science. Alien hunters rethink on the little green men. Boffs, which I assume is short for boffins, I don't know. Boffs warn E.T. is a prawn. As in the small aquatic animal. Space boffins advising the alien hunting mission to Jupiter reckon we're looking for prawns rather than little green men. So, I don't know, new source of food?
Is that what they called them in Men in Black, was it? The prawns? I remember. It was Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, is it worth it to go in all that way to find a load of prawns, Francis?
Well, it depends how much you like prawns, mate.
Yeah, if you're on the Jordan Peterson meat-only diet. But it's like... I mean, isn't it weird that they've got aliens now? Like, it's admitted, the Pentagon say there's these UFOs. Tucker Carlson was on a podcast saying, apparently, well, UFOs, they're underwater. This is, like, known. Yeah. And they also descend into the water really quickly, or they're just underwater, and they're moving at speeds that we've never seen before. So it's, like, known by US intelligence that there are UFOs, but they're not up there, they're underwater. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. But do you remember when they first let this information leak? You could easily be making that up, and I'd be like, yeah.
People don't know what's down there, do they? Under the sea. There's a lot of unexplored sea. I'm familiar with what he's talking about.
But anyway, but do you remember during the pandemic when they just let slip that there were UFOs and everyone was like, yeah, of course there are, mate. There's a pandemic. We're all locked in our houses. What else is happening? UFOs, why not smash them in?
I know, it's weird. And we've all got so little trust for the government now. We're like, there probably isn't UFOs.
Yeah.
As soon as they said there was, we're like, I doubt there is.
No, I think there is. Just look at Michael Gove. Have you ever seen that meme of him trying to clap? That is an alien, mate.
Good point. All right, well, that's it for part one. But coming up, teachers get assaulted by pupils. Britain is still racist, apparently. Oh, and World War III is kicking off. Don't know why I didn't put that earlier. See you in 2.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon here with two comedians who are prepared to work bank holidays, Cressida Wetton and Francis Foster. I suppose that joke implicates me as well, so here I am. Let's do The Telegraph and a story about two words I never thought I'd see together. Luxury camper van, Francis.
Exactly, it's like Fun Run, Nick. So we got Nicola Sturgeon's mother-in-law. Police have seized her luxury camper van. Margaret Murrell, the 92-year-old mother of Peter Murrell, has had her luxury camper van taken by the police, and they can sell for around 110 grand. So Peter Murrell was obviously arrested on Wednesday by police investigating the spending of about £600,000 that was earmarked for Scottish independence campaigning. And obviously this money, he might as well have spent it because they weren't going to win it anyway, so why not? Anyway, the police came, rooted through the bins, dug up the back garden, even had a look in the barbecue. And they confiscated the camper van so that they could have a look at it. And and so I think the most interesting thing about it was that there is a luxury camper van.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a strange term, but I suppose, Cressida, if you, for example, live on a boat, anything's luxury as long as it's on dry land, am I right?
Felt walls for delightfully soothing acoustics.
Right.
That'd be good for you.
Is that what it has?
Yeah, it would
is that
be.
one of its features?
Yeah, it is.
But surely it's not hers. Surely it's theirs. Isn't that the point? That they've parked it on the mother-in-law's drive to try and get out of... Haven't they tried to hide it? Isn't that the point?
Well, they may have tried to hide it. But anyway, so they've had a look at it. This obviously isn't the interesting part of the story. Everybody wants to know what Peter Murrell has actually done, that the police are coming round and digging up his garden. Because, let's be honest...
We're not allowed to say what he's done. We're allowed to ask.
We're allowed to ask. That is kind of... What's he done? Who's he buried in his garden?
All the nosy neighbours who wanted a comment. They knew when it arrived, the fact that it hadn't moved since January 21. They're very on it, these neighbours.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am personally shocked because it's the kind of thing you expect to happen to Trump, right?
Yeah.
Someone like one of Trump's sort of people, Roger Stone, got swatted in the night in a sort of very showy way, because that's what the Democrats do to the opposition in America. But for it to happen to the SNP, who was so sort of dominant and so, and so lefty and on board with the establishment, it just kind of seems surprising to me. What is the future for the SNP?
Well, I don't think the SNP has a future, Nick. They only have one real policy, which is just to shout the word freedom every 6 months. Yeah. Apart from that, it's essentially a broad coalition of people who on political views who, underneath the surface of it, there's no general consensus. They're led by Hamza Yusuf, who, if you criticise him, you're racist, and he wants to prosecute you if you say something that he disagrees with in the privacy of your own home.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? You've got a woke Muslim, and then you've got Kate Forbes, a sort of a radical Christian. Yeah. It's not so much a broad church, it's like a massive open field.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like Kate Forbes. But anyway, that's enough on that. Let's do this one. Britain is still racist, according to, you guessed it, The Guardian. Cressida.
That's exactly it. Britain, not close to being racially just society, not even close.
Wow.
Finds 2-year research project. So this research project is telling us that a third of people from ethnic and religious minorities in the UK have experienced racism. This comes after the Sewell report that found out that said no, the UK is not a racist country. These people disagree, but it is coming from the Centre on the Dynamics of Ethnicity, which is the UK's leading centre of research into ethnic, racial and religious inequalities. So they might be a bit biased.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds sort of vaguely communist. What do you think, Francis?
Well, as you know, my mother is a first-generation immigrant to this country, and so she's sometimes had racial abuse, but she's deserved it. So, you know, there we go.
She also gives out quite a lot of abuse.
Yeah, she does. So, you know, it's give and take, mate. You know, you can't dish it out if you can't take it. However, the thing is that they don't really specify what they mean by verbal abuse when it comes to racism. Also, as well, do they mean just going on Twitter? Because if you go on Twitter, you're going to have some idiot being racist to you, or Instagram, or social media. If that is a criteria, then I get racially abused probably every week for being Jewish, even though I'm not Jewish.
Well, it does say physical or verbal. So there's your answer there. Verbal presumably means IRL.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not saying that people are not... I mean, I'm sure, you know, there's racism, verbal abuse and all that. I'm sure that goes on. But it is a bit strange that this constant attempt to be this utopian country when, let's be honest, Britain's one of the least racist countries in the world. I think it would have a stab at least racist, to be really honest. Unless, you know, you're a white man trying to get into the RAF, and then you might encounter systemic racism. But look, I'm not saying this doesn't happen, but it's just, it's on a subjective kind of personal level where there's always going to be idiots. Is that right?
I think so.
Or am I just a privileged white man who hasn't experienced it?
Look, I think the problem is with this is... Again, it's difficult to quantify, you know, abuse, what some people will see as racism, other people will disagree with. So it's very difficult to actually quantify what actually constitutes racism in this particular aspect. The problem is there are still a few idiots here.
Yeah, but I'm sure The Guardian will keep trying to quantify racism. That's pretty much their thing. Let's do the Mail now. And more than 1 in 10 teachers have been physically assaulted by a pupil in the last year. Well, you miss teaching, Francis?
No, mate, because you're not allowed to punch back. Now, more than 1 in 10 teachers have been physically assaulted by a pupil in the last year, a poll suggests. So this was taken by a teaching union, the NASUWT. 13% of teachers argued they've been physically assaulted by a pupil in the last year. More than 1 in 4 teachers subjected to verbal abuse by a parent or carer. 22% have been pushed or shoved. Threats of physical violence, 19%. And verbal abuse at 58%. I don't know what schools these teachers are teaching in, but they sound great.
Yeah, it sounds like something out of The Wire. It's like, I mean, listen. A teacher responded to a survey, said, I regularly had a child that would throw chairs at me, threaten to kill me and my family, and say he was going to stab me. I mean, bring back caning?
Yeah.
It's just outrageous.
Or just don't teach your kids.
Right.
Or just don't teach the kids. Or
your kids.
Your own?
Yeah.
There's a woman here, I assume it's a woman, I actually don't know that, it's me making an assumption, saying she was upskirted. I mean, in any other workplace, you wouldn't put up with any of this for 5 seconds, would you?
Yeah, isn't it just a lack of any punishment? They know there's going to be no real punishment.
I assume so, yeah. But then when you hear that the parents are screaming at them as well...
Yeah.
I mean, come on, guys, teamwork.
You know, the parents side with the kid, the teacher's got no authority.
Oh, yeah, this is absolutely true. So the parents side with the kid, the teachers have got no authority. I remember once when I was teaching in East London, I broke up a fight with between two kids. Then the mothers got involved, so we had to sort that out. And then the grandmothers got involved.
Wow.
You know,
just you blocking punches.
Yeah.
It's nice that all those generations are at the school at the same time.
Yeah, descended there to, you know, assault me.
Was that the only time you were assaulted? Or did you ever any of this happen to you?
Well, I had many a shoe thrown at me. I think there might have been rulers, whatever else, but you know.
Yeah,
Things have changed so much. I used to have a headmaster that when he walked in, we all had to stand up. This was like the mid to late 90s, so I guess the world's moved on.
Simpler times, better times.
Very simple.
All right, well, let's do The Guardian. And if you're struggling to pay your bills, have you tried gambling your remaining money away, Cressida?
This is amazing. UK cost of living crisis leading people to gambling, says Charity. I don't know what to say about this. It just defies belief. People are using betting shops. Well, firstly, people are using them as warm banks. No boat comments. People are going to the betting shop just to get warm.
Yeah, no, it's tragic.
I mean, but can't they see that that's counterintuitive? It's going to cost you more in the long run. So people who've already got a gambling problem apparently are more likely. Problem gamblers are called, are 7 times more likely to gamble more in the next 12 months due to the cost of living crisis. So they're saying themselves, I'm going to gamble more because I haven't got enough money.
But I do sympathise, because the idea is you're sort of desperate and you think, just one big win and I'll win it back.
Indeed. So on my show, Trigonometry, we interviewed a gentleman called Matt Zarb-Cousin, who is a part of a group trying to hold these gambling companies to account. And he actually says that between 60 to 80% of gambling companies' profits come from 5% of people. So essentially what these companies are doing is monetizing addiction. And they know that these people have problems, they know these people are problem gamblers, but they keep feeding them money in order so they can keep gambling and they keep getting themselves in the hole.
Do you think it should be banned from, like, football? So, you know, Ray Winston comes on and says, ever gamble away you save it. And you sort of think, should that be on the football? Some people think it should be banned.
I'm not into censorship, but it is a bit naff, isn't it? It's not good.
All right, we should ban it because it's naff. That's a decent reason. Let's do the Express now, and World War III may be about to kick off. Slightly surprised this is story 9, Francis. It sounds important.
Yeah, it does sound fairly important, mate. But you know what? You know, the Labour Party did some banter tweets, so that needs to be number 1.
Good point.
But this is China and Taiwan. They're engaged in an intense standoff near the so-called median line in the Taiwanese Straits, with about 20 ships, half from each side, facing off with each other. And the Chinese have always seen essentially Taiwan as being part of China. Taiwan dispute this. The US support Taiwan. The Taiwanese are also the producers of semiconductors, and China desperately wants Taiwan to be part of China. And there is always that tension. And every once in a while, the Chinese, what they do is they like to flirt with the boundaries a little bit. So they'll do these kind of tactics.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a negging exercise, isn't it? If that's that's what they're aiming at.
Yeah, that's what they do. There's a little bit of flirting going on, what happens if we put this little boat here?
World War III, but if we were to, it might look a bit like this. Yeah, I mean, isn't it... But would this happen if Trump was in? I always ask this, because isn't it Biden's weakness? And some have even suggested that Biden's compromised with China because of things with Hunter Biden. I'm not suggesting that, of course, and this is all satirical content, but some people have suggested that on the internet. And people thought that about Trump. They thought, oh, he's compromised with Putin. This was a claim. But I don't think he was, or Putin would have done more when he was in. But is this because of Biden? I don't know. What do you think, Cressida? Is that just my hobby horse?
I don't know, Nick. There's a lot of people on Twitter saying it's all just posturing, which is...
You hope so, because it's either posturing or World War III, isn't it? So you hope...
Yeah, as you say, I'm inspired by the fact that it's story 9.
Yeah.
Well, I think, ultimately, the American and the UK response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine has actually shown China that we're not going to back down, that we're not just going to let these countries invade others. So I think, hopefully, China are just testing the waters at the moment.
Yeah, but their actions don't imply that they've been threatened by the US's response to Ukraine. I mean, they've pumped a lot of money in, I suppose, the US, but have they really... They don't seem that scared to me. But you think China have been put off, or have they been put off by Putin's sort of relative failure? Is that what you mean?
Well, I think they've been put off by the fact that the world has been united in supporting Ukraine, also by the money that has been pumped in, but also by the fact that the invasion of Ukraine has not gone well for Putin, either on the ground or in terms of the publicity that it's garnered.
All right. Well, that's part 2 in the bag, but coming up, Elon Musk trolls the BBC, Justin Welby says something silly for a change, and free iPads. We're not giving them out, but a posh school is. See you in a minute.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight into it with The Telegraph and more professional trolling from Elon Musk, Cressida.
Yeah, BBC branded government funded on Twitter. So Elon's gone into their account and put a little note on there saying that they're government funded. He sparked a row with the BBC after labelling the broadcaster as government funded. They're trying to resolve this. So the BBC have said, we're speaking to Twitter to resolve the issue as soon as possible. The BBC is and always has been independent. And they're keen to point out that it's funded by the British public, but through the licence, not directly through the government. So that's not the same as Netflix, is it?
Yeah, it's interesting. In a way, it's quite ironic because the government, BBC, most people at BBC hate the government. It should say blob-affiliated media. It's really the blob. But it is very interesting. Is Musk trolling the legacy media fans? Because he took NPR in America and he said that it was state-affiliated media. Then they said, hang on, we're not state-affiliated. But then he changed it to government-funded because they receive 1% of funding from government grants. So, but is he kind of just doing this? It's just an automated algorithm bot, or is Musk just having a little pop at the old legacy media?
He might well be. I mean, I don't think he's had time at the moment to do any of that. I think the issue is with Twitter at the moment is he's desperately trying to make it profitable. And the problem is, can you make Twitter profitable? As a business, does it have the potentiality to be profitable? So I think that's what he's trying to do. And maybe he's stopping, and in his lunch break, he's fired this off in order to...
He's trying to force people to go on Twitter Blue. You have to pay... It's actually like 11... It was meant to be 8 quid, but it's like 11 quid a month.
Yeah.
It's quite good just because you can upload... I don't care about the blue tick, but you can just upload longer videos.
You love the blue tick, don't you?
I don't care.
It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. You click and the guy's got 12 followers and he's got a blue tick.
You have both at the same time. It's like...
You've got legacy blue
weird.
tick and guy with 12 followers that paid blue tick. But isn't that more democratic in a way? What tick have you got?
I don't have any ticks.
Special boat tick. I'll stop. I don't know what's wrong with me. He also did it to the New York Times, didn't he? The New York Times lost their verified tick, which was quite interesting.
It was, and they did seem to be quite upset about it, didn't they?
They were not thrilled because they wouldn't pay.
Yeah.
And so he said, the only one I think is a bit harsh is George Galloway has Russian state-affiliated media, which has wound him up a lot because he's not, is he? I mean, he's just George Galloway. He's just a guy in a hat. It's a bit mean.
It is, but it is quite funny as well.
This part of you're making it profitable, though. Is this just supposed to be entertaining? It's like a bit cheeky. Oh, what's Elon done now?
Yeah, maybe.
I just think I think he's making a point, in my opinion, that it might just be a bot, or he's making a point that legacy media is over, Twitter is the new media, and you people are all going to have your privileges stripped away. That's what I like to think it is. But anyway, we'll stick with a similar topic and do the Daily Star. And Elon Musk's Twitter just got even more fun, in fact, unless you're Gary Lineker, Francis.
Yeah, well, Gary Lineker's Twitter account is under review after BBC tweet scandal. So Lineker says his Twitter account is under review after fans noticed a major change to his profile. And so I don't think Lineker is that bothered about it. He's actually on Twitter, Blue Nick. He says, I've been paying it for a while, only for the edit button, but nevertheless, he tweeted. So,
yeah. By the way, my tweets popped up here, not to make it all about me, but Lineker said he was under review. I said, well done, Elon Musk, for having the guts to crack down on large misinformation accounts. Purely as a joke, right? Yeah. This tweet has attracted so much hate from low IQ people who just come to it and they say, oh, GBNews hardly want to talk about misinformation. Or like, oh, I thought you were meant to be pro-free speech. Like, guys, it's a joke.
Yeah.
Little joke there, that's all it was. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. It's a very funny tweet, actually. But to me, this isn't much of a story, apart from Gary's been stripped of his tick.
Well, I thought he'd done something new, but he hasn't, has he?
No.
I looked for it, and I've tried to find what's the new thing. It's just the old tweet.
This is, you can't do this, Francis. When Lewis Schaefer's here, he always says, this is a non-story, OK? It's like, we're trying to do a news show, OK? We're going to kind of like get some content out of it. Lewis is like, this is a non-story. But yeah, anyway, yeah, it is a bit of a non-story, I'm actually going to admit, because I checked and he's got it back. So because he's got it back, it's a non-story. OK, well, fine, let's do the Times then. And apparently, post-colonial guilt is what Jesus would have wanted, Cressida.
Easter Day sermon, Welby says, Christ, not guilt, inspired slavery fund. So the Archbishop of Canterbury has said it's the living presence of Christ and not colonial guilt that compelled the Church of England to set up a £100 million fund to help those affected by the institution's historic profit from slavery. So he's had a lot of complaints about this. I don't know whether Nick made any of those complaints.
Yeah, only about 80%. Yeah.
It was a long day for you yesterday. So he's arguing that this has nothing to do with post-colonial guilt, but that it is what Christ would have wanted.
This really annoys me. What about you, Francis? I'll let you go first.
Right, I actually find all this stuff very frustrating because the reality is the world does have a huge problem with slavery. We have more slaves now than we have ever had in the past. Why don't we try and help these people? Why don't we try and help these people who are actually suffering as slaves, who have literally no rights whatsoever, instead of looking back into the past and 250 years in an act of self-flagellation?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's one part. Yes, we have more slaves alive now than ever. But also, what is Welby doing always getting involved? I mean, he claimed that Jesus would have been vaccinated. It's like, really, Welby? It's like, there's a couple of things he does. He does woke leftist virtue signalling. Then he also does sort of establishment stuff like that, which is really the secular establishment he's supporting, not the church. And the church really disgraced themselves. And I say as a Christian, during COVID, they all shut down, they all masked up, they're all useless. And I think it's affected a lot of people who are doubting the church now because of it, and young people have no faith in the church. When Welby does this kind of thing, saying that, oh, it's about Christ, he's just appropriating. It sounds ridiculous because he is the Archbishop, but he's appropriating Jesus to get behind a secular left-wing political cause. Is that not correct?
Do you think Jesus would have been pro-AstraZeneca or Moderna?
That's a great point. I mean, at the time I said, you know, they claimed that Jesus would be vaccinated. I'm like, really? Yeah, because he went along with everything the state wanted, right? Yeah. And he'd do anything for a quiet life. Those are the two things we know about. I say Jesus wouldn't have been vaccinated. I'm not trying to be blasphemous on Easter, but he definitely wouldn't have masked up. No. What do you think? Am I right?
Would he have? I mean, no. He had a history of facing difficult things, didn't he?
Right. He didn't go with the crowd.
He didn't go with the crowd. That's true. You've convinced me. Yeah. I think if he'd been in charge, there wouldn't have been any shortages. We can say that, can't we?
What do you mean? Of like...
Loaves and fishes.
I see.
But he wouldn't.
Yeah. OK.
No.
All right, well, he'd have provided the food, but would he have taken the vaccine? That's my... Absolutely not, I claim. Welby's completely wrong, and he's wrong about this slave eating as well. Let's do Monday's mail. And free iPads sounds like a bit of a luxury problem, but is there more to it, Francis?
So this is an actress called Sophie, I should say, Winkleman, who pulls daughter out of 20 grand a year prep school, once attended by the royal cousins Prince George and Prince Charlotte, after pupils are told they'll get iPads in class. So she's pulled her kids out because they're all starting using iPads in class. And look, you could say it's a first world problem, but I actually think she's right. I don't understand why kids as young as 6 need to use iPads.
You don't know what they're doing on them. It doesn't mention what they're for.
No.
Doesn't that sway you
They're
one way or the
opening up
other?
the cesspit of the internet.
Yeah.
Are they, though? I don't think they've got 6-year-olds sitting there on inappropriate websites.
Well, maybe they're teaching them how to troll on Twitter.
That's a good life skill.
It is a good life skill.
We have her on the screen here. She's the actor from the brilliant show Peep Show. And, her concern was that they're going to get on the internet. I mean, I did initially think, OK, there's sex education in schools, which is completely out of control and gross. There's critical race theory, which is disgusting. I might not be focused on the free iPads. Then again, if I was a parent and, kids are getting on the internet, I suppose they can access everything horrific on an iPad. So I don't know. Maybe it's a reasonable point.
Well, it's less to do with that, I think, than the reality is that kids already have too much screen time. And what the thing is with screen time, what it does is it's very addictive. So the kids get used to all the time being hyper-stimulated because they're on the iPad, they're not reading, they're not playing outside. And when they get the access to screens at school, it's just simply making the problem worse. You don't need to teach a 6-year-old using an iPad. It's ridiculous.
OK. Well, let's quickly...
It's worse getting pulled out of school.
Yeah.
Yeah, OK. Well, let's have a quick look at the Telegraph before the break. And yet another person who has more claim to the crown than Prince Harry, Cressida.
Apparently, aristocrat with rival claim to the throne will play key role in coronation. This is brilliant. This guy, Simon Abney Hastings, he's the 15th Earl of Loudon, and he's basically an Australian, but he's a bloody pom trapped over there. In 2004, there was a TV show where it was discovered that Edward IV's mother had an affair. So there's a lot of information here, but basically this guy's been living happily in America. Turns out Australia. Turns out his dad was possibly related to Henry IV. And by the way, I love this detail. When his dad used to go to barbecues and other Aussie events, he gets called the king by all his mates. Brilliant. So in the lead up to the coronation, the Coronation's Claims Office has had 200 applications, most of which won't...
Yeah.
Everybody can't be related to the king. 20% they've just put in the bin to start with. But this guy is going to be in the ceremony.
And he says he's an Australian. Not only is he Australian, he's the most Australian person ever. When they told him about it, he said, Struth. Struth, mate. And then he said... it's bad enough being a pom over here, let alone a bloody titled one. So he didn't want to have a title because he'd be attacked for being a titled pom. They found him... Also reminds me of a kind of... this thing of, like, he's this secret king. It kind of reminds me of, like, a Eddie Murphy movie from the 90s where he plays, like, about 16 different parts. Anyway, any comment on this?
Yeah, it reminds me of the film... Do you remember with John Goodman, King Ralph? Yeah. That American who then became king. I think we need an Aussie king, actually. Really? I think it'd be a lot better than the shower that we've got at the moment. Just imagine him coming in going, right, mate, this is great. I'm the king.
Yeah, I'm shocked, fans. You've come on GB News and you've said we need an Aussie king and you've insulted the royal family. You will not be booked again, but that's fine. Let's move on.
Not with the prices you're paying, mate.
All right, fair enough. That's part 3 done. Coming up in the final section, why you'll have to give in your CV to rent a flat. Vegetarians are even more sensitive than we all thought. And apocalyptic bio wars. Just a normal day in 2023. See you in 2 minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners. Let's do The Guardian, and we're all going to have to do job interviews to rent a flat, Francis.
Well, yes, indeed. This is all part of the housing crisis, Nick. So landlords demanding renters send a photo, CV and character references. On occasions, they've also asked them to share their LinkedIn accounts, and it's all a bit dubious. But they even say, look, tell us what university you went to. So if you went to Oxford or a Russell Group uni, you're more likely to get a one-bedroom slum flat in some godforsaken part of London. It's all great news.
Yeah, and the idea you've got to do some sort of personal statement to get a flat. And tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, it's going to be stuff like, I enjoy kayaking and tidying up. Do you know what I mean? I like long walks in the park and small repairs around the flat. You know,
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to sell it. You know what I mean? I tend to be quiet after 11 p.m. It's just nonsense. I mean, obviously, landlords have an argument because you don't want bad tenants who destroy the place. But at the same time, the supply and demand has got so mad. They seem to have a bit too much power. What do you think?
I think it's bizarre, and I think you'd be absolutely right to sit down and write your bio saying, I love hoovering, and Mr. Sheen's my favourite thing. Also, obviously, you can catfish them. Just get a Fitbird off the internet. It's the photos that are really offensive, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then I thought, what about when you have a house share and there's a fit one and a minging one?
Yeah.
What are you going to do about that? Do you
I'm shocked that I'm the only person on the show tonight that hasn't used the phrase bird. I'm the feminist here tonight.
Yeah.
Go on, Francis.
Well, you know what? As being having the name Francis, I would actually put up a photo of a top-level bird.
Top-level bird, then it's actually, then it's you, and they're disappointed, but it's too late. You've paid the deposit.
You pay the deposit, and don't be transphobic. This is what I identify as.
How you identify.
You never see your landlord anyway.
Yeah.
It has got mad. I mean, it is worrying. Would this put you off ever coming back to the land?
If I come back to the land, I'm going to be my own landlord. I've got used to that.
Yeah.
So, I don't intend to have any more landlords ever again. This is not my problem.
Yeah, this is a big problem, though, isn't it? It's as a result of the housing crisis. I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm worried about moving myself now. Apparently, rent on tenancies is now 35.6% of earnings.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to do something. We've got to either build a lot more or get rid of loads of people. I mean, it's one or the other.
Or maybe both, mate.
Yeah.
Maybe both. That's probably the answer.
Stop immigration? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well...
All right, well, you won't be committed on that. Let's do the Mail. And do pensioners need a little driving refresher, Cressida?
Apparently they do. Rise of the elderly drivers. Road Safety Group warns hundreds of thousands of pensioners should resit driving test at 85 amid fears of time bomb in OAP motorist numbers. Apparently, people over the age of 85 are 45% more likely to have a collision even than 17 to 24-year-olds.
Well, this makes sense because they're so old they probably can't see very well.
But 17 to 24... My mate Ross, he wrote off a lot of cars in his first few years. I mean, I'm very surprised that they're that dangerous.
Is it a sight issue? Are they just saying we don't really care anymore?
Yeah.
Reckless, doing donuts in the car park, donuts on the motorway. I mean, my granddad used to tailgate horrifically.
Really?
It's just who he was. And he drove up to age 93.
Legend.
And he drove incredibly near to the car. He's like testing his reflexes. If they sort of slowed down slightly, he would clatter into the back of them. But he never did. Fair play to him. Shocking driving. Awful to be part of. You're in the car feeling terribly embarrassed. But I don't know, is this unfair, Francis, or should we do this?
No, I think it's absolutely fair. I think the reality is once people get to a certain age, we should just get rid of them.
Wow, didn't expect some sort of weird eugenics to come from...
Listen, the NHS is under pressure.
Shocking.
I'm just here offering a solution.
Shocking scenes. All right, well, on that bombshell, let's do the Daily Star. And vegetarians have been accused of making a meal out of nothing. Isn't that the literal definition of a vegetarian, Francis?
Yeah, it is.
I was pleased with that one.
Yeah, boom, there we go. Anyway, woke police force warn officers to stop calling veggie colleagues turnips.
Turnip?
Yeah. So...
Feels like a West Country.
Yeah, it is. So, West Midlands Police have cautioned carnival cops...
Here we go.
Yeah, because they've called their vegetarian colleagues...
I'm not sure how that picture helps us. That's a picture of a policeman if it was a turnip. Does that come from AI? That's one of those AI...
Yeah, it is. Do you remember when Graham Turner got... Graham Taylor, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Apparently as a turnip, or was it parsnip or turnip?
No, it was Swedes 1, turnip 0.
Right.
That was in the Sun.
Do I not like that?
Yeah.
A different time, simpler time.
It was a better time. Anyway, people are very upset about it, and there was a couple of complaints made, and one source told the Mirror officers couldn't believe it. It was only meant as a laugh, not as an insult. But as we know now, Nicholas, nobody has a sense of humour anymore, so everyone should just shut up.
And to be fair, Cressida, it's not the worst thing happening in the police at the moment, is it? I mean, all the kind of rapists and stuff, the turnip thing.
No, you're absolutely right. It just sounds like the naff person in the office, doesn't it? The kind of wacky uncle with the jokes. I feel sorry for the person making these jokes. They're not good jokes.
No, it's not a good joke.
Hey, mushroom head. Ooh.
Mushroom head, yeah.
Really?
It's a very low-level microaggression. But if the police aren't even allowed this level of banter, I worry about how they're going to let off steam. But anyway... Yeah. Let's move on and do The Sun now with a story that combines every fear-mongering buzzword into one impressive headline, Cressida.
How mankind could face apocalyptic biowars by 2050 with gene-editing super soldiers and man-made killer viruses.
It's all in there.
It's all there.
I think I've just told you the whole story there. So experts have told The Sun that this... Basically, in the next few decades, I think they being The Sun, are telling us that people are going to be able to create super, mega, scary soldiers with superhuman strength. And we should all be very worried about it. Augmented soldiers.
You know what I really like about this is that you just look at it and then the subheadings are things like worse than a nuclear bomb. It's all very positive. And
very uplifting.
You know, one of the things that I've realised is that the world is absolutely going down the toilet, and I'm already quite glad that I'm going to be 41 and not going to be around to see it.
Yeah, I mean, they say the ability to engineer a very contagious virus with a very virulent virus is not only worrying but possible. Yeah, plus it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, but also, I love this idea. I mean, Putin is the one saying it could be more dangerous than nuclear war, but he means it as a positive, that he could, this could be useful for him, is I think what he means. I mean,
if everyone's doing it, it's like if everyone puts on 6-inch heels, we'll just get the same amount taller.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying it's kind of an arms race and it can't work. Everyone's a super mutant soldier.
Potentially.
Yeah. I see that problem. It says like militaries have a long history of using powerful drugs to temporarily turn their troops into elite killing machines. You go, do they? And then it cites Nazis took methamphetamine or crystal meth. I mean, Nazis on meth. Yeah. Anyway, we've got to end the show on that bombshell, Nazis on meth. That's all we have time for. But let's have a look at the front pages one more time. So, the Daily Mail has Tory anger as Starmer stands by every word of Rishi adds. The Times goes with Labour will blame PM for crashing economy. The Telegraph, GPs scrap services to cope with strikes. The Guardian, UK is not close to being a racially just society, finds 2-year study, we're not sure. Daily Express, millions demand keep our banks open. And the Daily Star, Boff's warn, ET is a prawn. That's all for tonight. Thanks to Cresta and Francis. Make sure you tune in tomorrow at 11 p.m. If you're watching it at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Bye.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because